Welcome to A Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. I'm Evan J. Chalfin from Luxhammer, where we help brands help you live healthier. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Fenster, founder and CEO of Everbowl, who's revolutionizing quick service dining through their unevolving philosophy and making superfood accessible to everyone. His insights are invaluable for our audience who are passionate about scaling health food brands. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Evan. Small world. Glad to reconnect. We were just reminiscing on our backgrounds, and so it's an honor and privilege to come on your show. Big fan of you, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, what's the origin story behind Everbowl? What inspired its creation?
I mean, truthfully, I never thought about the food space and restaurants. Zero background. I had a few other companies that I had sold and some that I had failed. Made more money than I probably deserved at a young age, and tried the retirement deal at 32. And my wife and kids said, go do something you're passionate about and get out of this house. You're driving us crazy. And my passion has always been on health and wellness. Work out every day, eat really healthy. I used to import a lot of different fun superfoods into my house that were readily available, dating back to early 2000s. So acai was one of those products that was always in my freezer, but back in 2014, 15, 16, you just didn't see it. It wasn't a staple on most menus. There wasn't really these acai-centric restaurants like we have today. A few, obviously in Hawaii, you could get one. And then a few very specific specialty restaurants, you would see an occasional acai bowl, but 8 out of 10 people still didn't know what that was. They didn't know how to pronounce it. And I was the guy where you'd come over for football Sunday and I would force you to eat this thing and eventually you'd love it. And so being a hypochondriac and afraid of illness, you start to realize what you put in your body and how you handle your exercise and your lifestyle is such a very important metric on the path to staying and healthy and living the best version of yourself. And so as a passion project, I opened a acai bowl shop in 2016 called Everbowl, not knowing really at the time when I signed the lease and what I was doing, what my plan was, other than I was doing some consulting between my companies, helping some other businesses. I was like, okay, I'll have an office in the back. I'll run this thing in the front. It'll pay for it. I'll be able to buy more acai, introduce it, and we'll see what happens. And that was truthfully the impetus when it very, very first started. And I signed the lease on a whim. I was in Poway, California, visiting an old client, and I stopped in a Smoothie King to get a smoothie. And the owner of the Smoothie King was legitimately removing equipment from the restaurant and putting it in his van. So I said, oh, are you not open? And he's like, no, we're still open until the end of the week, shutting down on Friday, retiring. And I said, oh, what's coming? He goes, I don't know. I'm like, you didn't want to sell the business? And he kind of said, I tried lightly, but Smoothie King, too much money, no one wanted to buy it, etc. But he'd been there for 20 years. And so I said, hey, do you mind giving me the landlord's name and number? He did. And I reached out to her. And the very next week, I signed a lease without a name or a menu or any idea how I was going to do it. But just the idea that, again, potentially have an office in the back. And if the acai didn't work, I figured, hey, if a Smoothie King lasted for 20 years here, I could sell some smoothies and still do okay. So I have the chance to monetize this office that I was kind of looking for. And that's how Everbowl started. I wish I could tell you it was like this vision I had since I was 5 years old. This is what was going to happen. It just didn't work out that way. But I loved acai. I believed it was an important menu item that needed to have much more attention. Many more Americans should be consuming superfoods, whether it's acai or others, and getting away from the fast and the fried. And when you start to really realize that the fast food industry gets the average American consumer to eat at them 3.2 times a week, you start to realize that, okay, we got to make a change. And it's not about speaking to customers in a way that we think they should. This is not good for you. Change your behavior, change your behavior, change your behavior. That doesn't work. And anyone who understands consumer psychology and the average American in person realizes they're not going to change. They want to change, but they're not going to, which is why gym memberships are at all-time highs the very first week of January, and gyms are at all-time low populations the first week of February. We all have great ambitions. We all want the result. So my whole business mindset went to, okay, how do I put Everbowl in front of consumers in a way that will allow them to consume it without changing behaviors? But I said, okay, well, why does the average American eat fast food? Like, why is McDonald's and Taco Bell and Wendy's and all these restaurants just thriving? Like, really, like, why? And I said, okay, we all know it's not good for us. So why do we still eat it? And so what are the excuses we make to not eat healthy that justifies that decision? And I narrowed it pretty much down to 4 very specific things. The average person believes that eating healthy either costs too much money because it's not subsidized by either the government or cheap quality ingredients. It doesn't taste good, right? Because a cheeseburger with French fries can taste a lot better than possibly a salad or something that is just plants. It doesn't fill me up. When I go eat that double cheeseburger and French fries and my soda, I'm full. And when I eat a salad, I'm not full, or I just can't get it. I'm in a specific spot, whether it's for work or commute or an event. I have to eat, and I have a very short window to do it, and I don't want to divert off of the path. And that's why you see fast food restaurants everywhere. So affordability, filling, delicious, and accessible. And I'm like, okay, if those are the 4 reasons that keep people making bad decisions with their daily diet and daily behaviors. What if I build a business that is affordable, filling, delicious, and accessible? And that's the path of Everbowl. So we tried to give more food for the same price point of what our competitors, the fast food industry, was doing. Make sure it tasted really good. So I control my supply chain, and we're focusing on that. Make it filling by giving a big portion in the price, and then accessible. I got to open a lot of these things. They've got to be in the same shopping centers, in the same areas that these fast food restaurants are, so you don't have to drive an extra mile or 3 miles to the beach, to this very specific cottage in this very specific, more upstream neighborhood where you would expect to find these products, and put them in those food deserts, which we've heard so much about, these areas in America that you see only the fast food kings and titans there, but you don't really see those other options. And so that was the business model for Everbowl. And once we opened, we kind of focused solely on those 4 things, and every decision we made revolved around addressing those 4 things.
I love that. I understand that you also have several other businesses that feed into it and they help each other. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that, and for our listeners who may not be aware of how you built this incredible perpetual business machine. Sure. I'd love to hear about that.
It's the concept of vertical integration. Business owners fail to win in business most of the time, not because they're not amazing at the very specific thing that they are amazing at, i.e. a chef who opens a restaurant is a phenomenal chef. But are they a phenomenal business owner? Do they understand what goes into running a profitable, winning business? And sometimes, and a lot of times, the answer is no, because that's not their specialty. Their specialty was being a chef. And so vertical integration is a business approach and a strategy that I stole from all the winning companies out there that are much larger and publicly traded and have dominated national and international consumers, and came to the conclusion that when you have a repeatable business problem, and the word problem doesn't always mean it's a bad thing, it just means it's a repeatable business situation. I sell acai bowls. So one of my repeatable problems is I have to buy acai or get acai from Brazil because that's where it grows. So the more bowls I sell, the more acai I got to get from Brazil. That act of getting acai from Brazil can come from a whole host of ways, and most restaurants will go buy it off the shelf from an acai distributor. Great. That's a solution. The challenge with that solution is twofold. Number one, you have no control of your supply chain. You are at the mercy of a distributor who can sell it to anybody. They can decide how much product is available to you versus someone else. You have no product differentiation because my product is being sold by you and your product is being sold by them and their product is being sold by me. So it's generic. So there's no brand connection to that product. The brand is just the name on the front. And then third is price. I am at the mercy of whatever price a distributor or the market sets. So that is a repeatable, nonstop, forever business issue problem for me. Everyone in your own industry, you're going to have those, you can identify them. And so vertical integration says, okay, if that's a repeatable business issue or problem, I have 3 choices. I can acquire someone or a company who does it. I can partner with someone who does it, or I can start my own. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I like to start my own. So I started my own import and manufacturing company to import my superfoods like acai and manufacture my products to my boxes. So I control my supply chain, I control my pricing, and I control product differentiation because what I make for my stores is unique to me. So to get an Everbowl acai bowl, our acai is you could say, well, what's the difference between an apple and an apple and an apple? Well, as you know, there are many varieties of apples. Where they are grown changes the taste and the profile of the apple. And then if you were to make apple juice, the amount of other stuff you may include or not include changes the product and the flavor of that apple juice. Everbowl acai is very specific to us. We are the only place you can get it, so it is unique. So if you like it, you have to come to me. Very much like Baskin-Robbins ice cream, you have to go to Baskin-Robbins. Ben & Jerry's, you go to Ben & Jerry's. But generic restaurant ice cream, you don't know what brand it is. It doesn't matter. You're just getting a scoop of ice cream. I'm building a brand. So for me, having that was very important. Controlling my supply chain, especially as we went through COVID and I couldn't have predicted that, and knowing how much product I have, where it is, and controlling its destination is very important because some of my small competitors got into a tight jam when bigger buyers of acai consumed all the available acai that was in America at the time, and a 1 or 2 unit mom and pop up and coming or just wanting to stay local competitor was going to be last on the totem pole to get that acai from a distributor because they're going to first give it to their biggest clients. You start to understand that you are at the mercy of a lot of things that could dictate whether or not you're successful. And a chef may or may not be thinking about that. A lot of business owners may or may not be thinking about that. But if scale is important to you and you want to prevent forest fires, and understanding the power of vertical integration. So we started on Evolved Products, went down to Brazil, sourced our own acai, went to, sourced our own pitaya from Nicaragua and Vietnam, started to source all of our other superfoods, started to manufacture our own products, started our own distribution and logistics side where we distribute it to stores through different mechanisms. And now we control that supply chain. And we are doing something that most entrepreneurs need to always be focusing on, which is you got to spot the iceberg in advance. The Titanic, most people don't know this, they actually saw the iceberg. It's not that they didn't see it. They saw it. But by the time they saw it, they didn't have enough time to move around it. It takes too long to move and stop a ship of that size. An air pilot who's flying a plane, as soon as they have a problem, the very first thing they do is get altitude. Now, most people go, why would you want to climb if you're having a problem? Because going higher gives you more time to solve the problem. So having options and having time is so critical. And so by controlling my supply chain, I had options and time when we hit COVID and we hit supply chain crisis that I had enough product to figure out what was next. And same thing on the construction side. I have a construction company called WeBuild where we build out the Everbowls because another repeatable problem is as I look to scale and as I look to accessibility of that Everbowl box, one of those 4 excuses I hit on at the beginning, I have to open a lot of these stores. So why do I want to pay retail to continuously open 2, 3, 4, 500 of these and get no economies of scale on the build out phase, get no benefit of the fact that we're going to do the same thing over and over and over again? Why do I want to give all that alpha away? So I started a construction company and we built out our own Everbowls. Again, not to make money, but to save money and to control that process and to ensure that when 2 years ago, when you couldn't get a builder to build anything because everyone was so busy, my builders only build Everbowl. So I am not waiting because I'm putting my guys to work and they're going to go build my thing. And I am not going to be at the mercy of the macro. And so not allowing others and situations to dictate your outcome, because sometimes this is a hard pill to swallow, but the excuse of, well, I couldn't have predicted this and I have no product and it's not my fault. It's not really true. We are responsible for everything and outcome that happens to us. And when you take that extreme ownership perspective and you take extreme accountability, you start to prevent and think about what you can do. And sometimes you're like, well, I didn't know. And that's true. And look, we can't always know. Like you can't always know what that problem is going to be to prevent it. But that's your job as an entrepreneur and leader. Like unfortunately or fortunately, that is our job. And sometimes it is, or we believe it is out of our control. And there's nothing we could have done to predict COVID. But sometimes that's kind of where the ball breaks. I mean, it's not a linear, fair 2 + 2 is 4 thing. It's navigating your ship through rough seas, good seas, not knowing where that iceberg is going to be and being cognizant of the fact that you don't know what's coming. So how do I protect my business? How do I think about my business? How do I ensure my customers, my employees, my investors, and my brand survive, thrive, and grow through any environment? And what can we do to make changes if necessary and pivot? And so vertical integration gives you more tools in that toolbox to address and solve those problems when they pop up and hopefully allow you to see those icebergs a little bit further ahead and ultimately stay in business.
So what would you say has been your biggest challenge in scaling the business this year?
It's a combination. I think there's a lot of fatigue just in the marketplace from leadership, employees, consumers over the last 4 years, because the last 4 years have been a tough stretch for us all, right? I mean, 2020, we had the introduction of COVID and going into 21, and then we had supply chain craziness because everybody was on pause. So factories were behind and everything was back ordered and materials were there and everyone was rushing. So the quality of what was being quickly produced to solve tight stuff was shoddy. And then at the same time, inflation was rampant. So everything was way more expensive. And there was this whole remote work culture happening, coupled with some people wanting to be at work, some not, some people moving. And so I just think the entire macro culture of the business world is fatigued. And so as we enter 25, I think you're just feeling it. Someone who doesn't get to sit here and say, oh, I'm fatigued and that sucks. Work with fatigue. I have it. So does everybody else. And I think that the challenge thus far is, how do we get excited again? How do we forget and get rid of the hangover of the last couple of years, regardless of political stuff, which was also crazy last year with the election? Like you just had so much stuff going on that, people say, well, are we going to enter a recession? And what's happening with unemployment? And what about interest rates? And what about, is this going to happen? And tariffs? And yeah, all that stuff is potentially there. But again, I got to win no matter what happens. That's my job. That's your job. So my challenge is just continuing to push through it for myself and everybody else, the hangover fatigue of the last handful of years, realize that this is the storm. Sometimes it's terrible, right? And you're going through the middle of it, and then you're going through the other side of it, and you're still in the storm, but you're closer to the outside of the storm than you are to the beginning of the storm. You're wet, you're cold, you're tired, you're irritable, but you got to keep plugging through, because on the other side of that storm is sunshine, is those good days. And I always try to remember that Forrest Gump scene, for those who have seen Forrest Gump, which probably most of you have, when they couldn't catch any shrimp. And then that big storm came, and Forrest Gump was on the boat fighting the big crazy hurricane out in the water, and it tore up everybody else's boat, and they were the last one left. And then they were the biggest shrimp company in the South. Storms can do that. And these opportunities that feel and are beating you up, this is your chance to persevere and to find a way through and leverage your relationships and ask questions and be a student and just keep plugging, because it's going to break a lot of companies. It's going to break a lot of people. And the ones who can thrive through it are going to be on the other side in a less crowded field with a lot of experience and a lot of opportunity. And so it's just reminding myself that on a daily basis, that I can't change people's behaviors. I can't change what they want to do. And culture of work has changed, where it used to be a work 10, 12-hour minimum American work culture. And now it's a work remote lifestyle. I want to have a better work-life balance. And I don't disagree or agree with the premise, but as a business owner, I disagree with the output, right? So I got to pay for an output. I need the output. And that is myself and everyone else. And so working through that, that's been my biggest challenge in 25.
So how do you address that fatigue?
Yeah. The leader for others is you got to remind them the why. If it's money, it's the wrong example. What are we really doing? What is Everbowl's biggest why? Why should we work harder? Why should we do this? Oh, it's just an acai bowl. No, it's not. It's jobs in an environment where potentially unemployment is growing. It's first-time jobs for a lot of young Americans and potentially international, where that's where they learn how to be an adult and work in an environment. And that, I saw a crazy stat when I was a kid, and I got my first job out of law school at ADP, and they gave you these charts, and it said 1 out of every 6 or 5 Americans had their first job at McDonald's. Okay. Fascinating. Is that a coincidence that everyone eats McDonald's? So what if 1 out of 5 Americans' first job was at an Everbowl or an Everbowl-like brand? Would that potentially change the consumer eating habits and what we think about? Because I know when I worked my first job at a pizza place, I got free pizza. And I'm sure McDonald's got free French fries. And at Everbowl, you're probably going to get a free bowl. So would that not have an impact? And then number 2, it's just a healthier experience. Besides that, we're helping our consumers. 100% of our consumers are healthier by participating in eating Everbowl. So if we can make it more accessible for more people, even if you eat McDonald's 9 out of 10 times, and before us it was 10 out of 10 times, you're still making a 10% of the time better choice. And that's so important. And we got to meet customers where they are. And so that's another why. And then number 3, we're adults. This is your life. We fail to realize we're the star in our own movie, no matter who you are. And you have a chance to leave an impact, whether it's at Everbowl or whatever brand you are. And what do you want that to be? And do you want to just go through the motions, or do you want to have a Hall of Fame, memorable career in life? Because you're putting your time, which is your biggest asset and your most expensive asset, into whatever it is you're doing. So why not do it with everything you got? Why not ignore the fatigue? We'll rest when the job's done. And if your job at Everbowl is to learn a few skills and then go on to do something else, then great. But while the time you're here, put your name on it. Leave your mark. Be memorable. Be the person that when they leave, we still talk about you. You have that chance. You have that ability to have an impact. And so that's what I try to tell them. Do they all listen? Absolutely not. But it's my job. And for myself, it's reminding myself of the same 3 things, right? I don't do this for money. I do this for the impact. So when I'm really beaten up and I'm really tired, I have children who look up to me and they will emulate me in certain areas, whether they listen verbally or not. I have a 19-year-old and a 13-year-old and daughters, and they got to see their dad push through all the tough things and come out the other side, not quit when it gets hard, but end when it's done. And how you do anything is how you do everything. So on my worst day, I got to be my best. And when it's the darkest and bleakest, I still got to push through with that same optimism and positivity, because otherwise it will change who I am and define me. And so it's a great opportunity to have that experience that we all want. Everybody talks about wanting that experience and that pressure until you're in it. So when you're in it, you asked for it. So go get it. And so that's what I tell myself.
Yeah, I think that's great. So, what would you say is your biggest roadblock to hitting your expansion targets?
Not a ton of roadblocks, I would say. I mean, obviously, we're fighting for good real estate with a lot of brands. We are now a teenager, right? We have about 100 open boxes with a couple hundred more coming, but we're now competing on a national level with multi-billion-dollar behemoths. Whether it's a fast food, Fast and Fried, who is my real big competitor. Like a lot of people say, isn't your competitor a Tropical Smoothie Cafe or one of these other brands? And the truth is, kind of, they're my peers. All of us are competing with McDonald's and Chipotle and Taco Bell and Wendy's and Burger King, because you choosing one of my competitors, which I'll call peers, I'm still okay with it. Yes, I want you to go to Everbowl. Hopefully you like ours better. But if you're like, Jeff, I like theirs better, great. You're still making a better choice. And what that means is, while you may go to them 89 out of 100 times or 95 out of 100 times, but that 5 times that you're somewhere where they're not and I am, you're still going to eat mine. Just like I may be a McDonald's guy and I'll go there 95 out of 100 times, but I'm in a shopping center and there happens to be a Burger King. Yeah, I'm not a Burger King guy, but I want a burger and fries. I'm going to have Burger King. So I'm going to pick up some business because you're consuming our product in our health and wellness area, which is first and foremost. That's what we're doing. And, Elon Musk, regardless of anyone's perspective on him, 10 years ago was asked this question back with the beginning of Tesla. And they said, some of these other electric car companies were being started. And I'll never forget, they said, are you worried about the fact that all these companies can now create electric cars? You're going to have all this competition. He goes, I'm not competing with them. I'm competing with gas-powered cars. Good. Let's flood the market with electric cars. Let's move the consumer to that, because as a result of that, they may or may not buy a Tesla, but they're not buying gas. And so his bigger why wasn't his product. It was his style of innovation and what they were doing. And so I'm starting with that. So the big roadblock for me is real estate, getting good real estate in these markets as we grow, realizing how important that is, getting the opportunity to penetrate these markets and introduce ourselves to these consumers, because we're fighting, like I said, with now massive, massive companies on a national level, where before I was fighting on a more regional level.
What markets are you looking to get into, and which ones do you think are going to be the next ones to penetrate?
All of them. We're in 28 states. We're opening in 3 more by the end of March. We're opening in Hawaii and Nebraska and Oregon next in these coming weeks, with stores that are almost being done and ready to roll. Truth is, there is no market we don't want to enter. It's about finding the right partners to enter, the right real estate, and then understanding what that growth looks like. Because you want to build concentrically. I don't want to just open one in New York City and then one in Hawaii, and then now what? When you go to New York City, you want to go with a strategy and a plan, and you want to penetrate the market and have brand awareness and use marketing and team and power to do it. So you got to have a good strategy. And then, because downside of vertical integration, I control my supply chain, I got to have a distribution center there. I got to have food available there. I can't just go pick it up off the street, off the shelf like others can. So there's more to it because of what I'm doing and how we vertically integrated, but there's also more upside and more security with it. So the difference between a startup and Google, I don't have their resources. You're right. You both have your strengths. So if you think about it as boats, they may be a aircraft carrier and you may be a dinghy. So what is your strength as a dinghy? Speed and agility. You can try things fast. You can make decisions fast. You can implement fast. You can move fast. They're going to run you over. So if you get in front of them, they're going to run you over. And they come with a serious wake, and they are seen when they're there. So they're going to try to leverage their strengths, and you've got to leverage yours. As I said, I'm kind of a teenager now, where I'm not a dinghy and I'm not an aircraft carrier. So I'm in that I ain't as fast as some and I ain't as big as some. We'll call it the awkward years, got the deep voice and puberty has started, but you got pimples on your face and you have temper tantrums, right? You don't have the experience, but you sound like an adult, and you're supposed to be an adult, but you're not yet. So that's the fun phase, right? That's the awkward phase. And so, it's now shaping who we're going to be when we penetrate through that. And it's a game at the end of the day, right? It's business. It's fun. It's got a lot of hard days. It has a lot of happy days, but the strategy, the actual act of navigating these decisions and the impacts of them, and being able to play chess with it and think 3 years ahead, while understanding my resource limitations today. And how do you do it? And those decisions are so fun. It's I guess that's what keeps me doing this. That's my favorite part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, definitely. So how are you approaching new market entry?
We now franchise, so we find great franchise partners, and then we use data and map out strategies of where we're going to open Everbowls and why, and then we hunt good real estate. And then once we have the good real estate, we should be seeding the market with good marketing, and then we come in and we're going to try to come in loud and say hi.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
What's working best for your location launch strategy?
Pre-marketing, marketing before we open. I think making sure that the market and the community knows we're coming and starts to learn who we are because they may or may not have ever heard of us at that point. And when we arrive, it was more of a, oh, they're finally open versus what is that place that just opened? That switch has changed and really sped up the sales and the AUVs of our boxes in the first early months.
So what trends in healthy eating excite you the most?
I think that the consumer adoption of the health and wellness sector is not a fad or a trend, but it's now a permanent thing. And I think you're seeing it with just how, I'll use a McDonald's again. They had the McPlant and they have they had salads on their menu. I mean, listen, wonderful. If you're at McDonald's because you have to go there to eat and you eat a salad, good for you. Is it the best salad in the world? Probably not, but better choice. And I think that's the realization that this younger generation didn't grow up. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. We would sit down for dinner at the table as a family and have McDonald's. Like, it really was a thing. It wasn't like, oh my God, you sat down at your actual home dinner table with your family and ate McDonald's. We did, because we didn't know what we didn't know. Today, I've never seen that again. And my 19-year-old and her friends, they never say, Dad, can we go to McDonald's? It just never comes out of their mouths. They want to maybe go to a Chipotle, which is an elevated in between. Great. And can you have healthy options there? Great. Consumers should know what they're doing and have other options that don't seem like a huge lift to accomplish. If you're going to go there and make the decision. I'm good with it. Do I make bad decisions eating sometimes? Yes. But we need to go from making those decisions being the staple of our diet to being the dessert of our diet. And I'm okay. I'll eat McDonald's. I'm not saying I would not eat McDonald's. Of course I would. I don't want to. I don't choose to. But there will be circumstances if I'm at a friend's event and that was what was served. I'm not going to be the guy who doesn't eat it, but I'm not going to eat it regularly. And so we need to go from eating salads and healthy food and acai bowls occasionally, but eating crap regularly, to flipping that script. And I'm seeing that take short form, and we're seeing it in our sales, and we're seeing it in the market, and we're seeing it in the growth of health and wellness brands at such a extreme velocity, and the decline of the garden variety fast and fried.
What potential challenges are you preparing for?
The real estate and the growth, the climate, the macro. Those are kind of the bigger ones right now, and the ones that I'm foreseeing that are going to be a little bit challenging. AI is obviously a scary yet exciting proposition. I'm more excited, but you can play this game and end at Terminator, or you could play this game and end at the greatest utopian society ever. The truth will be somewhere in between, probably, right? But you can play it to the scary version or the exciting version. Obviously, the scary version for me is a lot of companies don't need as many people to do a lot of jobs, which would mean a lot of layoffs. And while that sounds like efficiency and profitability, and sure, let's pretend I had robots making food and I didn't need any people. Okay, cool. Who's going to buy my bowls with what money, right? Like, at the end of the day, I need people to be able to have gainful employment, to have disposable income to buy my product. And so do you. So as great as it sounds in my lens of P&L and balance sheet, it sounds wonderful. Scary, people are going to have to figure out how to improve themselves in their careers. And like I said, the storm that we're dealing with right now, this is your opportunity to be remarkable, because if you are memorable, you will always be employable. If you just do your job during the hours of job barely and don't care and act with that, you're replaceable with AI. And every business owner who isn't looking at their staff that operate that way and finding a way to replace them with either remarkable humans or technology, they're not going to be around anyway, the business. So all businesses are doing that. And that's why you're seeing a lot of layoffs right now, especially in that middle management tier, because it's hard to justify middle management unless you are so remarkable, because you have that middle ground. That's that ice cream at the dinner at a restaurant where you don't know what brand it is. Well, that was pretty good, but I'm not going there just for that. I'm going there for dinner. And if I have that, that's great. So you got to differentiate yourself and either be a thought leader who is moving the company in one way, or actual results driven, hitting the numbers where it's like, yeah, that person's killing it. Let's think about something else to deal with right now. And so it's just that phase of the world right now, the technology adoption curve.
Absolutely. How are you positioning Everbowl for these changes?
Well, we're looking at them all. I mean, business intelligence, and I'm going to use AI in a way that to some is how they understand it. To others, it's way more than that. And it's not just AI, but leveraging agentic AI tools and building out our own where it makes sense, utilizing business intelligence to analyze the data that we do have, building out, and stop using our opinions and start to use very specific mathematical and data inputs for a very predictable output is what we have to be doing, whether it's on our supply chain side, whether it's on our menu side, whether it's on our staffing and labor side, whether it's on our scheduling and hour side, whether it's on our marketing side, whether it's on our messaging side, whether it's on our customer service side. These tools are there. Think back, you're my age, but for those who are our age and a little bit younger than us and older, it's 2002 again. And the internet is not just emails, right? We didn't know what the internet was going to be, but back then it was emails and maybe sending a catalog to your email to then look and maybe phone in or fax an order. But we didn't realize what the internet was going to be. We didn't realize the power of smartphones and smart devices and how communications and telecommunications and everyday items that we use, like my car, can be updated via the internet. Like our brains couldn't connect those things. And so we're at that same phase today. And so AI is going to be, again, not as the word what AI means, but that as a general statement, like Kleenex is not just the brand Kleenex, it's a tissue, right? AI for this entire area of actionable and computer-driven decision-making based on information that we all have. I'm going to use AI because it's the simplistic way to say it. It's not going anywhere. It's absolutely happening, whether you want it to or not. And so you have a choice to adopt early and embrace, or you have a choice to ostrich yourself, or you have a choice to resist. Resistant ostriches, unfortunately, will go extinct like Blockbuster and Circuit City and Sears, and early adopters will thrive like Walmarts and Targets. So wake up early, stay up late, find a time. You have no choice.
Absolutely. So if we were to have this conversation again in 12 months, which I hope we will, what would it make you feel it's been a successful year?
45 new Everbowls open. So it'll be about 150 boxes. Another 50 new Everbowl franchise locations sold. So we can identify those markets who want to grow. National expansion having already occurred. Raving consumers in more states that have more accessible access to Everbowl. And my last one, I would say, is, how would I say this one? Everbowl is becoming synonymous with the product, like Kleenex to tissue. I want people to say Everbowl, but me not soluble.
Well, thank you so much. That's it for today's episode of A Healthier, Happier You, the people working to make it happen. A huge thank you to Jeff Fenster for sharing his insights and the amazing work Everbowl is doing to help people live healthier, happier lives. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could benefit. And if you're a brand or business making an impact in health, wellness, or personal care, we'd love to help you grow. Connect with me at luxhammer.com. Thanks for listening. Till next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep making a difference.